All right. So we've gone through the process of making connections and extensions. We've talked about making sure that you cite your source by either identifying or both the page number and the lecture when you post in response to Ms. K and when you respond to your classmates. Now, the next thing I want you to notice is that October 4th is the last day of the module. So that means then that your module, your final test for module 1, remember you have 2 chances, you need to complete by that date. All right? Also recognize, let me find your, actually it's October 4th. I sent you all an announcement that said that there is an extra credit opportunity. Did you all read it by any chance? All right. Well, it is someplace where you can have 5 extra credit points directed to any assignment in Module 1, right? So if you don't like your second test grade, if you do this extra credit assignment, then you'll be able to actually get 5 extra credit points added to your test grade, all right? Now, to do that, you are being asked to, let me find my notes, watch a video produced by the Effective Communication Association for the Student Government Association on campus. And I have sent you to the ECA site because we're always recruiting. And if you like what you see, you may want to join up. But what I'm saying is to earn your 5 extra credit points, you will need to watch the virtual resource fair. And in that virtual resource fair, there are many people who talk about their services that they provide to you or clubs that you might be interested in joining. And you will need to answer 3 questions in an email that you send to me. The first question is, what information did you learn about resources that you did not know prior to watching the video? And I'm sure there's something you did not know. Question number 2 you need to answer is, what resource showcased in this video something that you need right now? Some kind of assistance that you need to access right now. And who's the contact information? And what are you going to do to explore how that resource can assist you? And question number 3 is, if you can provide constructive feedback to the Student Government Association about the information that they presented in this video, what would you like to tell them? So this is where, again, your critical analysis comes in, and what more would you have liked to learn about, all right? So it's a way of us doing a bit of a survey. It's a way for you to earn some extra credit points. And it's also, quite honestly, to get some more mileage because it's hard to find that video on the website. So this way I got you another on the SEC website. So this way I got you to look at it, right? So I'm hoping you're going to do this for extra credit. All right. I'm going to turn off for 1 second, and then I'm going to take attendance. Oh, I'm just going to take attendance. All right. I'm not going to turn it off because it's weird. All right. So today is August 31st. Adams. Here. Berger. Here. Hagel. Collins. Mann. Here. McNeil. Here. Monroe. Here. Sandoval. Here. Pedro, your second part of your last name is cut off. What is the second part of your last name?
So it's hyphenated. It's divided by
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Delgado.
Ah, got it. Is that what you go by instead of Sandoval?
It's either or.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Okay, well, that makes it easy. Thank you. Taylor? V-Bird? Okay. Anybody's name I did not call? All right, terrific. All right, good. So let's get in. Oh, and the extra credit I just told you about is due before October 4th. All right, so let's look at your module. Now, on a piece of paper, I want you to do an activity. So everybody pull out a piece of paper, and what you are going to do is literally number it 1 to 20. Every line, number it 1 to 20. So on your paper, I'm not going to see this. This is just for your eyes. You're going to number it all the way down 1 to 20. Now I'm going to set my clock, and some of you may finish early, some of you may not finish at all. We're going to do it so that you all get equal chance to fill it in, because the more you put here, the better. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just going to be some self-discovery, all right? So what you're going to write at the very top of the page is I am. Now you don't have to keep saying that for each one, but essentially that's the beginning, and then this is going to be the end. So for instance, if this was me, I might say I am Ms. K. All right, and then I'm going to do I am blah, I am, and then I'm going to just fill in the blanks for everything else. All right, now I'm going to give you 3 minutes, which is going to feel like a really long time. All right, but the first list is going to be easy. Those are going to come to you really fast. The bottom are not going to be so easy, and that's where some of the gold is located. All right. Now, when you're doing this, don't evaluate. It can be a title that you own. It could be a feeling that you're experiencing. It can be a concern that you might have. It might be a question. It might be a role that you play, like teacher, boss, supervisor. It might be anything, okay? And I don't want to give out any more suggestions because that's the power of suggestion. I want you to come up with your own. All right? Any questions before I start the clock for 2 minutes? All right, go ahead and begin. and stop. Okay, so how many of you were able to get a full 20? Any show of hands? A few? Okay. All right. Woo. Now we're going to do a little analysis of this. And again, this is what's so fun about communication studies, is that we never look at something on the surface. We always look at it as deeply as we can. All right. So I am statements. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to look at each one of these, and what you're going to do is next to it, you are going to now evaluate. And by evaluate, I want you to think, is it positive or negative? All right? I don't know about how you evaluate positive and negative. That's up to you. Nobody can tell you how to evaluate, but you are going to do an evaluation, a critical thinking analysis. So next to each one of these items, you're just going to put a symbol, either a plus or a minus, all the way down. So do each one of them. You could also do a neutral if something was just like, it's not really good or bad. You could do a neutral, just a dot for neutral. Are you done? Now over in this margin, or this side of your paper, I want you to identify 2 things from here that you are really satisfied with. Okay, so 1 and 2. Identify from your list that you're satisfied with. You're good with it. Put 1 and 2. Now, the next item is you're going to identify only one item from the entire list that you would like to change. And identify that. All right, the next one is, I'm just going to put a great big star, and I want you to identify 3 elements from your list that bring you joy. So if you want to go back to your textbook, we're going to start to make some connections between what you did and what this all means. So on your textbook on page 34, it talks about self-concept. So in this snapshot, this moment of time at, on a Monday morning, you have, looked at your self-concept. And your textbook defines self-concept as refers to the overall idea of who a person thinks the person is. All right? So if you step back here, you now have an overall self-concept. And that self-concept represents the good, the not so good, the neutral, and you even started to say in your self-concept, there's opportunities for change. There's things that obviously you want to keep because they bring you such joy, and things that are okay. You know what? As part of life, satisfied with. So we look at this list, all right, and we analyze our self-concept by what's known as Cooley's looking glass self. Subconsciously, a little bit consciously, as you were writing these things down, and especially when you were giving a symbol next to each one of those items, you were looking at yourself like others see you in a mirror. All right, so it's the looking glass self. And Cooley states then, as explained down here at the bottom, we form our impressions, our concept of ourselves by how others interact with us. What do they respond to us? How, what here brings a smile to their face, and therefore you put a positive next to it? What item here makes people frown or get mad at you or punish you or whatever, okay? And that respond to that feedback that you get from others is helping, you to recognize what's good and what's not good, okay? Based on those interactions, words, okay? Nonverbal and verbal. So what we're always doing is we are comparing ourselves to others. Because what you're also looking at, let's say you have a role, and the role that you have is maybe it is maybe it's mother. All right? And you think of yourself right now as, your age, you're a mom, you're happy with it, you love being a mom, maybe even put it as it brings you joy, all right? But let's suppose that you are a mother and you're only 15 years old. You still feel wonderful about it, brings you joy, everything about motherhood is fantastic, but when people recognize that you are a mother, and they may even overtly ask you, how old are you? And when you say, the response that they give you might be, the eyebrow up, the really, kind of feedback. What you are seeing about yourself in their eyes is that, maybe that's not so great, okay? And I know right now you want to say, well, who cares? Well, interestingly, you do care, all right? You may want to say, well, I don't care. But there's a truth in our psychology, which we're going to talk about in a little while, probably next class, that there are some other elements playing in there where you really do care, okay? All right, so you're socially comparing yourself to others. Now through that, all right, you may see where you are better than others. Maybe you're not as good as others. So you even put those kinds of qualifiers on there, especially if there's something about you that you say, I really want to change this. I don't see this as being healthy for me, or I don't see this as being valuable. Right? So there's what we call the superiority or the inferiority analysis or judgment of how others see us, which is a reflection that we see. And then there's also similarities and differences. If we were to analyze everybody's piece of paper in the room right now, and even your students in the next group who are watching this video from home, when they're looking at this, their list in no way will be 100% like your list. Their analysis will in no way be 100% like yours. The things that they pulled out, again, will not be the same as yours. So a lot of what we do is we also look at our similarities as well as our differences. Sometimes those differences, again, help to build up our perception or our self-esteem as being superior, or maybe not. It might help us or cause us to feel inferior. Okay, so similarities and differences are very valuable in recognizing a degree of satisfaction or something that we want to change, etc. All of these play into our feelings, and those feelings are generated from how people show us what we are projecting. Okay. Now, that's Cooley's Looking Glass Self. If you want to read up more, it's fascinating, and that's something that you maybe want to be starting to think about in your future term projects, especially if you look at the social comparison theory in terms of how we socially compare ourselves to others. Okay, so now let's look at these items, and we could do something else. We can now look at our self-esteem. And in your textbook on page 36, self-esteem is defined as the judgments and evaluations we make about our self-concept. All right? Self-esteem is more specifically of evaluation. So this whole process of doing this when you are evaluating yourself, that's your self-esteem. And if you were to add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say there are 5 pluses, and maybe your list has 1 negative, then you can even quantify the data to see that your self-esteem is positive. You have a good understanding of who you are. You feel good about yourself. But if you were to have honestly, and very much honestly can be where there's lots more positives. In fact, that's what we want because that's healthy. But maybe this Monday morning, with everything coming on at the end of the month, blah, 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 maybe there were a lot of negatives because the snapshot of who you are in this moment today, you have a lot of stressors or a lot of pressures or what have you on you. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives, and you could even only come up with 1 positive, right? So in that moment, your self-esteem might be suffering, might be feeling low. And how is that analyzed? Well, it's done right here. So you can start to see how important talk therapy is. When people go into recovery or therapy to figure out why they're depressed, or, you know, whatever other things they do, we're talking. You're talking. You're the building blocks of your reality, the building ways that you are understanding who you are in this moment is coming from words, coming from communication. All right, so very powerful, very important. Okay, now on the next page, on page 37, it defines a term called self-efficacy. Right? And it says here, this refers to the judgments that people make about their ability to perform a task within a context. All right. So this is looking at your skills and your talents, your abilities, efficiency. How able are you? How do you view yourself as able to change something? If your self-efficacy is high and you see that this is something you need to work on, then you'll come up with a list of strategies. Maybe you're missing due dates, right? So you're going to go to Staples or Walmart and you're going to buy a planner, right? You're going to list all your due dates in it. You're going to set a reminder in your phone about those due dates in advance of them being due, all right? And all of these are with the goal, your self-efficacy, that you believe you have the skills and the talents and the abilities to change this condition of missing deadlines. So you do. So instead of missing deadlines, we do this in 6 months from now or 3 months from now, this activity. Maybe your plus is always meet my deadlines. How did you do that? Because you believed you have the ability to change. You have the sources, you have the resources, you have the, whatever is available to you that you need to make that happen. Pretty valuable, right? Okay. So those are the things that are extremely influential in identifying who we are. Now you have in discussion forums one option, which is to complete the Myers-Briggs type indicator. If you have done that with another class, great, you can still do it. And I am going to give you a different kind of report than what you received in if you did it over at our Career Center or even in a different class. I'm going to give you a perspective from an employee and an employer or a teammate, right? And so if you choose that one, it's a great activity, and I'll give you some additional information. Now, that is an opportunity for you to take a look at, again, what is your self-concept from an instrument that's fairly reliable, that's going to identify what are your strengths and what might be some possible opportunities or things to be cautious about. I'm also going to give you the option that if you want to do something different, instead of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, you can do what's called an Enneagram. Now, I'm not certified in the Enneagram, but I have been doing them lately and studying them, and I find them very interesting. So you have the option of doing an MBTI, that's the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or an Enneagram. If you choose the Enneagram, you'll have to do some additional research on your own. all right? But those are ways of us to try and understand, how do we build our reality? How do we make sense of who we are? Okay? All right. Any questions about what we have so far? Right? Okay, then for next class, what we're going to do is move into 2.2, where we're going to talk about self-discrepancy theory. And we're going to start looking at ourselves in terms of an ideal self, an actual self, and an ought or should self. All right. If you've not read this part of your textbook, read ahead, and you'll probably have some questions about this that you'll want to bring in, and it's very valuable. So we've talked about self-efficacy. We've talked about your social comparisons. We started to look at the Cooley's Looking Glass Self. And we definitely did a snapshot of who I am. And that concludes our lecture today. Does anybody have any questions for me? All right. Is it a question for everybody, or do you want to just come up and ask me at the front of the room?
Oh, that's a question about the last thing. What's the MBTI Enneagram?
The Myers-Briggs type indicator?
Okay.
Okay, it's one of the discussion forums that you can select.
Okay, that's one of the two?
Yes. Yeah. So it's one of the options if you want to do that one. And then you fill out a questionnaire online. It's going to give you a report. You're going to send me your results, and then I'm going to send you back a special report, and then I'm going to do a little micro lesson that's optional with a PowerPoint if you're interested in seeing more about it.
What if we've already done and didn't put page references?
You've already done the Myers-Briggs?
Did it like a week ago?
Okay, it doesn't count. And the reason is because I want you to look at who you are right this moment. Now, I will tell you that the Myers-Briggs type indicator is highly reliable when you take the questionnaire at the Career Center, all right, on our campus over in Boyd, all right. Oh, no, excuse me, Blue Hall, in Blue Hall. If you do the online one, which is the one I give you, which is free, it's not 100%. It's not as high a degree of reliability, but it does give us an indicator so that I can give you how you are perceived in the workplace or on a team or those kinds of things. So if you did it on your own, that's awesome. And if you did it with Miss Russell, that's awesome too. You get that for free on our campus, which usually costs about $100 to do it outside of the college campus when you do it through her. If you want to go and do that through her now and use that report, I will accept it if you confirm that it is done like within the last week or two. Okay. Yes.
How long does that take?
I'm sorry?
How long would that take?
For you to go do it with Miss Russell? I mean, if you do it online, I think it's 75 questions for me. When you do it for Miss Russell, it's, you know, I would plan about 45 minutes to an hour. But it's easy. You just really walk into Blue Hall, and her office is right there in the Career Center, and you can either schedule a time or what have you, and she'll set you up to complete it. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. Really cool stuff. All right. Okay. You guys are great. Have a good day.